Hey buddy, it's Peter, and this is the 2025 Ducati Monster, or Monster Plus to be specific and correct. And this is the Ducati for everyone, as long as everyone is an experienced rider who understands what a premium machine really is, because that's what this is. Ducati has a whole range of motorcycles, and of course they're kind of known as the Porsches or Ferraris of the motorcycling world. And this one again is a little bit more approachable for a lot more people. And the reason I can film Ducatis is because I'm filming here at Rallye Motoplex, where they have an entire Ducati showroom that you can't see. It's all behind you there, where there's all kinds of Ducatis here. There's all kinds of other stuff. So I just did a Triumph video, just did a BMW video, and now I do Ducati as well. All of these are because I have access here at Rallye Motoplex, where they are complete experts. And I am new to Ducati. I am not someone who has bought a Ducati before or spent a lot of time with them. But of course, as I learn more through these guys, I'll be able to show you more as well. So if there's things you want to know about Ducati, things you want to see about them, things you want to see in depth, and the types of videos that I do, make sure you follow along with this channel, because there's a whole lot more bikes to come. Nobody's going to film more bikes in Canada, more 2025 bikes in Canada than me right here on this channel. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you like it, subscribe it, do all those things. But if you really want to just help me out, just watch some of my videos till the end. That makes a huge difference. All right, let's get going with this review. So let's put this bike in a class, and first of all, we have to remember that when I say this is a Ducati for everyone, Ducati really does have a bike for almost everyone if you're an experienced rider. They've got touring bikes, they've got sport bikes, which we all know, they've got retro style scrambler bikes, which is just behind me over there, which we'll do in a future video, but this Monster is kind of their most mainstream, regular, everyday bike. I mean, this used to be sort of the Japanese staple, which we now call naked bikes, but this is, of course, not Japanese and not a normal bike in any way. This bike has a bunch of things that make it a lot of fun. We'll talk about power. Power is something this bike has a lot of, but not crazy, 111 horsepower, so not tons. So when we put this in a class, it is a naked bike, but it's premium in a whole lot of different ways, and they're ways that the rider feels. And that's really the thing with Ducati, is that they don't try to kind of put something on for marketing purposes. They put quality components just throughout the entire bike. So when we talk about this being a naked bike and you could get XYZ for less or for different or that kind of thing, yeah, you can, but there's nothing exactly like a Ducati, and that's what makes these things pretty special. So let's start at the front wheel and work our way through. So if you've never seen my videos before, you know I like to start at the front wheel, because that's where you can tell the manufacturer's intent for a bike. And I'll be honest, you've seen front wheels like this from other manufacturers, but we'll talk about the difference in 1 second. First of all, 17-inch front wheel. It's a typical 120 by 70 by 17 ZR rated tires, Pirelli Diablo Rosso tires. So you've got high sport tires, really grippy, nice, and especially when you get them really warmed up. You've got massive front brakes, dual disc brakes, ABS of course. You've got Brembo, you've got upside down forks. Again, this is the kind of thing you can find on any Japanese sport bike. The difference here is this is kind of just entry level stuff on a Ducati. This is normal types of things. So again, nothing too crazy here, but this is where a lot of manufacturers spend their time trying to impress the customer by throwing Brembo brakes on, and maybe a lower trim doesn't have Brembo brakes, by putting the upside down forks on even their most entry level bikes now. So they try to get the look and feel, but what you have here is tuning in the suspension that's really good for what this bike does, quality brakes, quality tires, all of that stuff. But what you'll find is on this bike, they take some of that quality, some of those brand names, and go beyond the front wheel. So I'm going to try to point some of those out as we go through this bike, but let's move on to the heart of this bike. So taking a look at the heart of this bike, you have a very narrow twin-cylinder engine making 111 horsepower. Now, I had a Kawasaki 4-cylinder engine that made about 111 horsepower. This is definitely narrower. This is definitely a whole different packaging, and this is the kind of thing where Ducati really shines. This is where, you know, the Ducati engines really are something that are special. They have a lot of torque, they have a lot of horsepower, they can scream up through the rev range, but you've got that fit in here to a very narrow frame here. So you've got something that is going to be a lot of fun, but also something that's going to be nice and powerful and torquey. That's the big thing, is it's just going to feel power absolutely everywhere. So we could talk a lot more about this engine. The website has a whole bunch of information, good marketing stuff and good factual stuff in there, but let's keep moving through. So taking a look at the rear shock there, again, typical sport bike type stuff. Even though this is a naked bike, everything's shifted forward and low for the weight, and you've got that yellow shock, which traditionally means an Öhlins suspension. I can't see the brand name on there, but I'd be surprised if that's not an Öhlins suspension. So Ducati does all of these things right? Like they get all the sport stuff right, but they also put some style in here. You can see the exhaust here, sort of the individual exhaust, each or the dual exhaust there, one for each cylinder. But as we talk about pieces and parts that you find on a bike that are not always everywhere, not only does this have Brembo front brakes, it also has Brembo rear brakes. It's also got a Brembo master cylinder on the clutch. So you're seeing some of these high-end components work their way through this bike into something that is truly special. We'll talk about some of that specialness in a second, but let's just first jump on this bike and show you what it looks like with me on it. So jumping across this bike, again, you're going to notice that narrowness to this bike, and you're going to notice that the very, very lightweight bike, it definitely feels like the weight is positioned low. Honestly, this thing feels not a whole lot different as far as a weight perspective than sitting on something like a Ninja 500. It definitely feels light, it definitely feels controllable and maneuverable, and you can see it has about a 6-footer here, narrow front to the seat, narrow overall bike overall. I can easily flat foot with a bend in my knees. I'm about a proportional 6-footer. So as we move to our seating position, you have got a relatively sporty position in the legs, but nothing crazy, and a slight lean forward, which would be typical for any naked bike. It's going to give you enough wind to help hold you up. But again, you've got some real feeling controls here. It is a slipper and assist clutch, but it's got the Brembo master cylinder, and it is a fairly heavy slipper and assist clutch. It is something that if you're driving through town, you're going to feel that clutch, but the feel is very good. One of the things that people don't mention about Brembo components when they're done right is it's not just about going to the racetrack and having, for instance, brakes that you can be, brought the bike down from extremely high speeds over and over and over again without fade. It's also about the overall feel. Everything on this bike as far as a riding component feels really good. You've got good feeling brakes front and rear. You've just got a general feel that's different, and that's why you jump for a Ducati instead of getting something that's a little bit more generic. Let's bring you in and show you some of the controls here now. So take a look at the dash here. I want to show you as we bring it to life here, not a huge screen here, fairly good clarity in person, but it's going to be harder to see in the video than in person. That's just the way these sort of displays kind of work. This is where the other brands will try to sort of trick you into thinking theirs is better. This is not a big screen, and there's nothing too fancy here, but you can see here you've got your settings menu. There's a number of things we can cycle through here. So settings, DPL, which is part of the ride modes and that kind of thing. You've got a lap counter, you've got menu settings. So let's just jump into some of these riding modes there. So let's just click the riding mode. You've got sport, you've got touring, you've got urban, you've got all the defaults, so the default is whatever. But you can cycle through those ride modes here. Again, it is a drive-by-wire, so you have the ability to have those in there. Fuel indicator, backlight, you can change, put a pin code on this bike, that kind of thing. Service, lap information, tire calibration, spelled T-Y-R-E because of the European bike. Turn indicators, you can set them up. I believe they are self-canceling as you want. Measurement units, of course, everything like that. General information here, you've got, actually got a low battery right now, so that's good to know. Before we go too far, we'll take this bike off in a second. But overall, you have a rounded dash, which I really like, and you can see everything spaced evenly. When you're riding a bike, as you get used to a round dash, which many people may not have anymore, you don't read numbers anymore. You just know where 7,000-ish RPM, you know where you are roughly on the thing. So if you had a dash that runs up here and over there, it's a little harder to see evenly where you are on the dash. So I really like that. And then you can see all of your different electronic controls over here, what's on, what levels are at. ABS is level 2. So there's all kinds of controls in this bike that are going to work with you to keep you in control, but really they're just about giving you that sporty feel overall. All right, we're going to turn that dash off now. We got a little bit low battery. Let's show you the controls on this bike. So fairly basic controls on this bike. You've got a flash to pass you can almost not see there on camera, and then of course your high beam and low beam there. This is the menus that I was cycling through the menu, and then interesting, your signal switch is sort of your mode and your enter into that type stuff, as well as being your signal overall cancel switch, and then you have a horn down here. So a little different way of doing things by combining the signal switch into the controls. I'm not sure I like that or don't like that. We'll have to sort of make a decision at a later point, but a little bit different way of doing things, but again, it works just fine. It's a little different. Fairly grippy hand grips is one thing I will point out, that the rubber on this is almost a gummy hand grip. That's not something you see on every other brand. And again, that clutch is that Brembo master cylinder, which does allow you to have a really precise feel. But again, for a slip and assist clutch, it is probably one of the heavier slip and assist clutches that I have felt. Over on the other side, there's a start and kill switch and a hazard warning light switch on there as well. So as a first look into Ducati, the Monster was the one I wanted to do first for a reason. I think a lot of people look at this bike and they say, yeah, it's similar to XYZ generic bike that I have. And let's be honest, the controls, nothing too fancy. The dash, nothing too fancy there. It's a sort of a typical display, a little bit smaller than some. And all of that, I think sometimes people will write this thing off. But as we move through the Ducati lineup, and you can still see it in this bike as well, a lot of the key pieces to riding are what make it special. For instance, the 111 horsepower on here doesn't seem too special, and this is why you can never buy a bike off a spec sheet. You can get 111 horsepower motorcycles that are kind of cruising, kind of chill, kind of fun, and they've got the power and the torque when you need it, and they feel strong, but you don't have something that feels fast, that feels quick, that feels nimble at the same time. And that's really what the Ducati does, especially this Monster Plus, which is just a slight trim upgrade. You have something that, again, this rear seat cowl on here gives it that sporty feel. And again, the simplicity and compact size of this bike really does make it feel, like I said, not far off a Ninja 500, which is from Kawasaki, of course, which is a very small entry-level bike, or fairly small entry-level bike. So it feels very compact, but then gives you all that power. And what that means is you can have all kinds of fun on this bike in all kinds of ways. This is not a cruising bike. This is not a, gentle bike. This is a bike that is precise, agile, and aggressive, and that's what you want. You're buying a bike for how it makes you feel. So you can never buy a motorcycle from the spec sheet, and that's why the Ducati especially is not necessarily, or this bike especially, is not necessarily going to show up fantastically on a spec sheet. But what it is something that is very different from all the bikes that generically look a lot like it. So there's my first look at Ducati Monster. We're going to have a lot more Ducati stuff where I'm going to dig in further and further and further to make sure I get you guys more and more information. If there's a Ducati you want to see, something you want to see on video here, not every Ducati is here, but many, many, many of them are, and I'll make sure I get as many of them on video for you as I can, especially this 2025 model year, and we'll just keep moving through. So thanks everybody for watching this, and we'll talk to you in the next one.